What I really want to do right now is talk about how Masters of the Universe Part 2 is what we always hoped it would be, and what Kevin Smith promised us, and that I have to eat humble pie and eat my proverbial hat. But this is 2021, and 2021, if nothing else, is the most woke, emasculated, pathetic year we have had. And if there's one thing that is absolutely guaranteed, it is that Hollywood corrupts, infects, and subverts everything it touches. And Kevin Smith willingly brown-nosed his way into the good graces of these despicable people. And then he lied through his teeth. He lied, and lied again. And once he had finished lying, he stuck his head up his arse so that he couldn't hear all the fans as they told him what a worthless, lying piece of shit he really is. And that his vision of He-Man is a feminist wet dream, and would have been better suited to the weirdo twats who are making the disgustingly depraved She-Ra reboot. You may notice that I am not really mincing my words, and the reason for that is that I am so goddamned effing pissed off at what that effing bearded piece of worthless pond scum has done to what is a cherished childhood hero of mine, and many of you guys out there. Do you remember all of this bullshit? Well, get ready for more of the same, because Kevin Smith is a lying sack of shit. Part 1 was nothing but a massive disappointment for the fans because the franchise's main character He-Man was missing in action for all but the first episode. Instead, we were given a roided up Teela as the main protagonist and her bestest friend, a race-swapped, slightly less roided up Andra as number 2. After that, the closest person to a main character was Evil Lyn, who I said was an interesting character, and it seems that was also what Kevin Smith thought too, because while Part 1 was all about Teela and her selfishness, Part 2 is all about Teela and Evil Lyn. In the case of Teela, it's about how she is the replacement for the Sorceress, and in the case of Evil Lyn, it's about how she feels oppressed by Skeletor. And what Part 2 is not about is He-Man. In fact, the crazy thing about this cartoon is that He-Man is a minor character. If I were going to list the characters by order of importance to the show, it would go something like this. Teela, Evil Lyn, Skeletor, the Sorceress, Man-at-Arms, Adam, Orko, Andra, He-Man? He-Man's only value to this story is that Teela was mad at Adam because he didn't tell her that he was He-Man. That and a distraction for Skeletor. Yep, believe it or not, He-Man has become a Z-list character in his own show. Which is why this show is called The Masters of the Universe. Not He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, just The Masters of the Universe. Here is a not-so-quick synopsis of what you'll have to endure if you choose to subject yourself to what has to be the worst thought-out idea for a continuation of He-Man that has ever been committed to any form of media. But before I get started, please consider subscribing as that would really help me out. And if you like this content, give it a like. Okay, on with the review. I wonder how many mental gymnastics Kevin Smith had to go through to make the public claim that this show was all about He-Man. And with that in mind, here is what happens in Part 2. Episode 6 opens with a young Sorceress and Man-at-Arms with baby Teela as the Sorceress chooses to become the guardian of Grayskull and tie herself to it forever, and forsake everything else, including her family. So she abandons Man-at-Arms and Teela shortly after she is born and goes off to become all-powerful. Yay! And here yet again we find that Kevin Smith doesn't give a damn about He-Man, because the story of how the Sorceress came to be the guardian of Grayskull has already been told in the original series. And since this is supposedly a continuation of that series, why is Kevin Smith attempting to retell it? It is almost as if he doesn't know anything or care about it. Just as he claims that Man-at-Arms is Teela's biological father, when we know from Man-at-Arms himself that her father was some other great soldier, and that there never was a romantic relationship between the Sorceress and Man-at-Arms. But this is par for the course with Kevin Smith's Masters of the Universe. Why let the original series lore interfere with your Hollywood-approved feminist agenda? That would be inconvenient, and too much like fan service, which is apparently now a dirty word. Next we pick up where we had left off, with everyone being captured by Skeletor after he stabbed Adam at the end of the previous episode. Adam then acts all manly for a minute, and then everyone escapes, except Man-at-Arms. And the Sorceress teleports them to the royal palace before Skeletor stabs and kills her. Yes, they kill off the Sorceress because reasons. Teela then discovers that she suddenly has magic powers, and heals Adam with the help of the Sorceress in spirit form just before she dies, because of course Teela was always meant to take over from the Sorceress, and Kevin Smith no doubt couldn't wait to kill off another heroic character, because he is a greedy bastard who simply wants to destroy and deconstruct something that he has no love for, and appears to even hate. Plus, he gets to make Teela even more powerful. After all, just giving her muscles like an Olympic weightlifter, and I don't mean the female ones, isn't enough. Anyway, back to the bullshit parade of Kevin Smith's not a fan fiction. Skeletor then somehow makes Evil Lyn the new Sorceress of Grayskull, even though it is always the other way around. The champion cannot make the Guardian. Not to mention, she never even sees the pool of power, let alone bathes in it. And it is He-Man lore in the cartoon series that only the gentlest and purest will be chosen by the castle to be the Sorceress, so Evil Lyn had no chance. In any case, Skeletor monologues about how he survived the original explosion that killed him and He-Man by casting his soul into Evil Lyn's magic staff, then feeding off of her life force until he was powerful enough to recreate himself again. Evil Lyn then gets all upset because Skeletor has been using her for his own gain, which is bloody stupid because he has always done that, and she has always used him too because she has always been waiting until she is powerful enough to take over, which is why she always used to do things off her own bat that Skeletor never knew about. They treat her as if she was just another one of Skeletor's henchmen, which she never was. Honestly, if we didn't already know that Kevin Smith is a charlatan and a snake oil salesman, then this would be yet another big nail in the coffin of his credibility. The writing in this series is unbelievably infantile. Teela and co find themselves at the Royal Palace, where they are accosted by Clampchamp and Fisto, who manage to mistake them for thieves trying to loot the palace after it was evacuated, even though they have known Teela, Cringer and Adam for who knows how many years. And no sooner are they introduced than Skeletor shows up with some army of the dead making smoke that infects Fisto and Clampchamp, who then turn into undead monsters that are quickly blown up by Andra. And so the second strongest character after He-Man, and the one and only black character, are killed off within about 3 minutes of appearing on the program. They even showed them as just a pile of bones. It's bloody sick. I was also surprised that they hadn't given Clampchamp a major role in the series, since he is the only black character. Yes, you have Andra and King Grayskull, but they don't count because they aren't really black characters, they're just race swapped, which is just a pathetic bit of virtue signalling and does nothing for representation, which is just another word for pandering to the woke mob. Skeletor then kicks everyone's asses with magic until, for reasons that make no sense, Adam suddenly decides that maybe he should see what happens if he says the magic words without the sword. He could have done that hours ago and saved the Sorceress, Fisto, and Clampchamp. But no, this is all about Kevin Smith's nonsense raising the stakes agenda, so logic and sense are not valuable commodities to him. And then we get to the scene that I have heard some people getting all excited about. And that is Savage He-Man, which honestly is the most R-word crap I have ever seen. Why the hell would Adam suddenly lose his mind when he turns into He-Man? Let alone, why the hell can he change into He-Man without the sword in the first place? A question that Skeletor and I actually have in common. And then finally, we get what should have been the main focus of this series, and that is a fight between He-Man and Skeletor. But, as is the theme with this pretentious waste of time, it isn't really He-Man. It's simply some lookalike with some of his strengths. It has some cool moments, but there's no reason behind it, because this version of He-Man will fight anybody. It is meaningless, which is a shame because it could have been quite a cool fight otherwise. And after that brief interlude into something that was an attempt at giving fans a He-Man moment, but at the same time snatching it away and laughing in our faces, we get back to the main focus of this cartoon. And that is fluffing Teela, to make her look amazing with her buff man bod. Now that she can suddenly do magic, she copies the Sorceress's teleportation spell, and they find themselves in the Mystic Mountains with a berserk He-Man, which just so happens to be the place where Adam's parents have gone after the evacuation of the Royal Palace. And as soon as they arrive, Andra says, "What shall we do about Savage He-Man? And Skeletor." And Teela replies, "I don't know, I'm not the Sorceress," in a laughably obvious bit of foreshadowing. This couldn't be more badly written if they'd gathered up all the woke comic writers, sat them in a room with a typewriter, and fed them laxatives. The results would have been indistinguishable from this drivel. In the meantime, Skeletor abuses Evil Lyn some more because #MeToo. Back to Teela and the Masters of Nonsense, Savage He-Man goes crazy and tries to attack King Randor. Randor then monologues about how bad a father he is because Gillette advert, and then gives Savage He-Man a big hug and tells him how proud of him he is. Then voila! Adam is back and everyone has a bit of a cry. There is a short moment in that part where Teela gibbers on about how she has always believed in Adam, even when his father didn't, which just comes across as such horse crap, when she spent the previous half of this program bleating on about how she has been treated so badly by everyone, because, oh no, they had a secret that they didn't tell her because they were trying to protect her. The sheer lack of coherence in the writing is mind-shatteringly apparent, even if you don't think about it too much. Teela also describes the power of Grayskull as pure rage, without the sword to temper it, which is nonsense when we know from when Teela Na, aka the Sorceress, was originally made Guardian of Grayskull, that Grayskull apparently insisted that she had to be gentle and pure, which doesn't sound like a power fueled by rage with no reason. I just can't express how much Kevin Smith has bastardized the story of the original cartoon. He makes it clear with every episode that he simply isn't a fan and is instead just a grifter. King Randor, after the return of Adam, feels very magnanimous to anyone who had even the slightest hand in returning Adam to him, so he forgives everyone, except himself of course, because he is a powerful white man, and that just isn't allowed. He even makes Andra a lieutenant in his royal guard, and this obviously isn't the first time because who's this fine lass? And what is her story? It's bound to be far more interesting than the drivel I'm being subjected to in watching this vomit stain of a program. Queen Marlena then tells Adam that because she knew his secret, King Randor blamed her for his death, and that they were now having marriage problems so bad that she even considered returning to Earth. Yet another example of how everything had fallen apart without Adam, so at least we know that his existence has some sort of meaning in the cartoon, unlike He-Man who has none. A quick trip back to Grayskull, and we see that Skeletor is abusing Evil Lyn, because, again, #MeToo, then he makes a grave mistake and shows Evil Lyn the secrets of the universe, and she finds that there is no grand design, and that everything just is, which makes her so mad that she decides to seduce Skeletor, nick the sword, and use it herself to become, her own champion. Incidentally, we are treated to a disturbingly weird scene of her sitting on Skeletor's lap and snogging his skull. Very creepy, and just no. So, Evil Lyn seizes the sword from Skeletor, says the magic words, and since it is a theme of this series, becomes a world-class bodybuilder. Because obviously bigger muscles means more magic, more power, for reasons. Really, it is beyond a joke at this point. And she becomes stupidly powerful since she was already the supposed new sorceress. She tells Skeletor that he is pathetic, and he had no idea what to do with the power since his only aim is to defeat He-Man. Then she essentially decides that because the world has no meaning, since apparently taking over Eternia is now no longer a big enough goal, she wants to destroy everything, and starts by destroying Preternia. Which means she destroyed the spirit world. And I find all of this pretty bizarre because anyone who has watched the original series knows that there are various creatures in the universe that are basically as powerful as He-Man and the Sorceress, and they often took a lot of work to defeat. If He-Man had always had this level of power, why would he have made it as though he had to work so hard at defeating some of the tougher bad guys? It just beggars belief. And yet again, I am sorry to go on about it, but Kevin Smith did not watch the original series. He just got given a list of characters and a synopsis about them, stuck his head up his arse and started writing. It is bollocks. Then Teela, Randor, Adam, Marlena, and for some reason Andra, then have a council of war that basically consists of them saying, "Oh no, what shall we do?" And then Teela saying, "Have no fear, for I am here." Because she is obviously the bestest everestest. And she says she will send a psychic message to everyone on Eternia asking them to help us fight. Luckily, everyone believes in Teela, and so she turns into Jesus and sends her message. Skeletor then explains when something or other aligns somewhere in the universe that Evil Lyn's power will be 1,000 times stronger, and that she will then destroy all existence because she is pissed off with Skeletor for not treating her like a lady or something along those lines. By this point I was barely able to keep from throwing my TV out the window and spending some valuable time looking for a TV that hasn't been cursed by bringing this crime against humanity into my house would have been a welcome relief. Back to Evil Lyn, and she is now treating Beastman, who has shown nothing but compassion and worry for her, as a piece of something nasty that she stepped in. Which means she is no better than Skeletor, since even he treated her better than she treats Beastman. He did it because of not getting what he wants, whereas she's doing it because she's simply being a bitch. Anyway, back to what passes for the story. Adam comes up with a plan that essentially consists of he and Skeletor, King Randor, and anyone else who turns up, distracting Evil Lyn, while Teela sneaks into Castle Grayskull and becomes the Sorceress. Yes, that is the entire plan. And then Teela, because she has always been meant to be the most powerful woman in the universe, will defeat Evil Lyn, and everyone will live happily ever after. Oh damn! Did I just give away the rest of the show? Though I'm sure you could have all guessed this before this half of the series even came out, because Kevin Smith is a lying sack of shit. And we all knew from the moment we read the synopsis about Teela's adventure to bring magic back to Eternia. There was no mention of He-Man because he's not a major character. Teela is a major character. Andra is a major character. Evil Lyn is a major character. Hell, even Queen Marlena is more of a major character than He-Man. This series is such utter trash that Strider almost got more screen time than He-Man, and was probably more pivotal to the plot. To cut a long story short, the battle between Evil Lyn and King Randor, Adam, and Skeletor goes from bad to worse when Evil Lyn raises the dead and Scareglow turns up with an army of Deadites. In the meantime, Teela goes to the Pool of Power, bitches at the ghost of her mother, the Sorceress, for a while about how she abandoned her as a child. Then, when she is told that she can have the power of Grayskull, but she will be forever tethered to the castle and unable to leave in human form, Teela replies, "Nah, ghost bitch. I do what I want, when I want, how I want. I don't need none of your age-old Castle Grayskull lore. I make my own rules." I may be paraphrasing slightly, but that was the gist of it. Evil Lyn, meanwhile, kills Panther in yet another middle finger to the fans, and incidentally, only the second bad guy killed after Faker, who is a robot of sorts and so doesn't count because he can be rebuilt. All the rest of the characters that died were the good guys, which also tells you something about how little of a shit Kevin Crybaby Smith cares about He-Man and the fans. And just when things are probably at their worst, I'm not entirely sure, I was struggling to keep watching, let alone care at this point. A raised from the dead Orko appears and saves the day. It turns out he did die in the first part of the series, but for some reason he is the only character that gets to return in his normal form, and is now living up to his name of being the most powerful sorcerer on Troller. He battles Evil Lyn and Scareglow at the same time using multiples of himself, which I guess was actually a pretty cool moment on the whole. Until finally, Adam retrieves the Sword of Power, and with those magic words, "By the power of Grayskull, I have the power!" he finally turns back into He-Man, just in time to be sidelined yet again by the return of the almighty Teela in her new Sorceress form. Teela and Evil Lyn then have what is supposed to be an epic battle, but consisted mostly of a bit of girl talk, and then after showing her that the universe was actually beautiful, if a bit chaotic, Evil Lyn decides that, okay, she'll stop being quite so evil and gives up the power that she had stolen. In the meantime, He-Man got to play second fiddle with an unimportant little fight with Skeletor, whose existence is apparently solely based on trying to defeat He-Man. So He-Man, like a good second fiddle, says, "It's not about us." And that kind of sums up the entire series, because it really wasn't about them. It was never about them. It was about Teela and Evil Lyn, the two stars of the show, without whom we would be stuck with those terrible second-rate characters Muscle Guy and the Blue Skull Bloke, which is probably how Kevin Smith referred to them. After all, why would he bother to learn the names of two such minor characters? Teela then gets a final Messiah moment when she floats down from the sky carrying Evil Lyn. She then uses her power to fix everything that Evil Lyn damaged, except of course bringing back those that died. With the exception of Orko, who Evil Lyn saves from returning to the spirit world by simply holding onto his wrist, because they had such an amazing connection that of course she would want to save him, even though she was just trying to destroy the world and treated people who actually were supposed to be her friends like shit. He-Man gets one last chance to do something as Teela invites him to help her fix everything with his power. Of course she didn't really need him, but at least he gets to say he helped a little. So, it all ends happily ever after. Teela is the Sorceress, Andra gets to be Man-at-Arms even though she isn't a man, and she was the lowest commissioned rank in the army before this rather unlikely promotion. Evil Lyn seems to have decided to travel to somewhere or other, and gives up her wand, which I guess means she is supposedly giving up magic, even though you would have thought that she would have been in prison for all the crimes she committed. Adam and Teela have a very touching moment on a tower where Adam says, "So, are you ready to keep Grayskull's secrets with me?" And she shuts him down saying, "No more secrets. I'm ready to share them. So yet again, another big FU to the original series. And then Adam worries that Teela will no longer need him since she is all powerful and can leave Grayskull at will. But she says the Sorceress will always need her champion. Plus, you go where I go, which is a bizarre turn of phrase since the phrase is I go where you go, and turning it on its head changes it from being endearing and romantic into more of an order. Which I guess makes sense, given the importance or lack thereof of men in this alternate dimension version of the Masters of the Universe. Teela then tells Adam that he is her hero, and we can finally be reasonably sure that she isn't a lesbian, although which one of them is the dude in this relationship is a question for a different day. The end! Well, nearly. There's also a scene where Skeletor goes back to Snake Mountain and is attacked by Motherboard and gets the chips things pumped into him, blah blah blah, who gives a monkeys, certainly not me. Thank whichever deity you prefer. I am so glad this horror show is over, and we can only hope that its huge unpopularity will keep Netflix from thinking a sequel is a good idea. It will be a cold day in hell before I ever trust Kevin Smith with anything more important than a toothpick, and even then, it's probably a bad idea what with them being a bit pointy. This has been nothing but a huge disappointment. We all had our hopes so high when this was announced, and the massive fall we experienced after finally seeing it cannot be overstated. He-Man is a character that was deserving of a new cartoon, and continuing the original series would have been a masterstroke. Sadly, that is not what we got. What we got was a Hollywood special, complete with feminist nonsense, diversity agenda, and a complete lack of understanding or interest in the property and the fans. Hollywood and its hangers-on and lackeys are so far removed from the rest of the world that they are incapable of making anything that isn't aimed at their Twitter sphere. They don't understand, nor do they care about the average person. They are simply a dollar sign to them, not people. And the only way they will learn is for those dollar signs to walk away and spend their money elsewhere. We shouldn't be surprised that this happened. After all, look what they did to She-Ra and comics in general. We were never going to get a real He-Man cartoon, and for the foreseeable future, no well-loved classic property is going to be safe. Next time we hear about a cool classic show being remade, we will know better than to give it any credence or credibility, because we've been burned too many times, and next time it will probably be with a flamethrower. This has been Movies Suck, longing for the days when major companies just wanted to sell you a cool toy, not brainwash you with nonsense woke ideology. Signing out. Leave a like, share and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the flip side.